Ah, look who just ruined an entire hierarchy with nothing but their presence. You didn't swing a weapon, you didn't deliver a speech, you didn't even intend to disrupt anything. Yet an elite circle that prided itself on secrecy, dominance, and psychological choreography just fell apart because you stepped through the wrong door at the wrong time. Or maybe the right door at the right time, depending on how you define destiny. Hello, you quiet detonator of carefully constructed power. You accidental dismantler of long-standing psychological architecture. You became the unexpected variable in a room designed to eliminate uncertainty. And in doing so, you exposed the truth they spent years burying beneath ceremony, symbolism, and controlled intimidation. They were performing what they believed to be a closed-door ritual of influence, an internal dominance play reserved for the highest-ranking members of their inner circle. But the moment you walked in, everything shifted. The room froze. The hierarchy stuttered. The leader, the one who built his entire reputation on commanding that space, lost his composure in real time. Not because you embarrassed him intentionally, but because the illusion he lived on crumbled the second an uninvited presence witnessed it. You didn't just interrupt a meeting. You shattered a narrative they curated with obsessive precision. They wanted the world to believe their control was effortless, that their authority was innate, that their followers revered them out of genuine respect rather than fear wrapped in choreography. But rituals, whether symbolic, psychological, or procedural, only work when the audience accepts the illusion. And you, by existing outside their script, stripped the illusion bare. The leader wasn't supposed to be seen vulnerable. He wasn't supposed to be caught mid-performance. He wasn't supposed to be observed while manufacturing the power he pretended to naturally possess. But you walked into that room before they could finish sculpting the atmosphere, before they completed the posture, before they arranged the lighting and words and silence into something intimidating. And what they feared most happened instantly. Someone saw them as they really were. Not omnipotent, not untouchable, just people pretending to be larger than life. And that's what truly destabilized them. You didn't expose anything with aggression. You exposed them with reality. The leader's entire dominance play was designed to work on those who believed in his mystique. But mystique collapses under the weight of an unfiltered gaze. You became the mirror they never wanted. You became the witness they could not control. And in high-level circles, a witness is far more dangerous than an enemy. They know how to fight enemies. They don't know how to survive someone who simply sees through them. Look at how their followers reacted. Their so-called Coven, the inner council that executed his strategies, enforced his rituals, and maintained the atmosphere of reverence around him. They couldn't even meet your eyes afterward, not because you were intimidating, but because your presence reminded them of the truth they've been suppressing for years. Their leader's power was never real. It was constructed, rehearsed, and fragile. And you, without trying, broke it. They are ashamed not of you, but of how easily their illusion fell apart. They are embarrassed not by your interruption, but by their realization that it only took one uncontrolled variable to expose the entire hierarchy as smoke and mirrors. They won't admit it out loud, but the moment you crossed that threshold, a silent ripple spread through the room, a frequency shift, a psychological static that unsettled everyone. They felt it in their bodies before they processed it with their minds. The hierarchy they had sworn allegiance to was built on compliance, not competence. And compliance is weakest in the presence of someone who doesn't play by the script. You are not supposed to be there. You are not conditioned to fear them. You are not trained to bow, hesitate, or shrink. You walked in with the neutrality of someone who doesn't recognize their throne, and that neutrality was more devastating to their authority than any rebellion could have been. What unsettled the leader most wasn't your presence. It was your expression. You didn't gasp. You didn't panic. You didn't scramble to apologize for intruding. You simply observed. That alone was enough to fracture his foundation. People in those positions survive by controlling reactions. They thrive when others fear the room. They tighten their grip when others walk on eggshells. But you gave them nothing. No submission to feed on, no discomfort to exploit, no intimidation to validate their importance. You stood there like someone assessing a malfunctioning machine, and they could feel their influence short-circuiting beneath your gaze. Here's the part they will never recover from. The Coven didn't just lose respect for their leader. They lost belief. And once belief dissolves, authority becomes a costume. The leader felt it instantly. The silence that followed your entrance wasn't just awkward, it was catastrophic. It was the kind of silence that signals the end of a reign, the kind that cracks open a door to rebellion, the kind that makes people reconsider every command they ever obeyed. All because one person walked into the room uninvited and refused to play small. They've been running damage control ever since, whispering explanations, creating narratives, telling their followers and themselves that you misunderstood what you saw. They say you didn't grasp the context, didn't comprehend the importance of the ritual, didn't appreciate the gravity of the moment. They say anything except the truth. That you saw their leader mid-performance, and the performance couldn't hold. They cling to excuses because admitting the truth means admitting their entire hierarchy was built on theater. You weren't supposed to become a symbol, but you did. Not of rebellion, but of clarity. Of truth slicing through illusion. Of sovereignty walking into a room where submission was the default. You didn't humiliate their leader, you revealed him. You didn't overthrow the hierarchy, you showed it had no legs. And nothing terrifies a constructed power structure more than exposure without effort. They expect challengers. They expect confrontations. They know how to punish defiance. But they have no defense against someone who isn't playing their game at all. Think about the irony. They spent years crafting a psychological fortress, guarding every entrance, controlling every narrative, policing every symbol, maintaining secrecy so thick that even their own followers questioned the authenticity of their commitment. And yet, it was the simplest, most mundane human accident, the opening of a door that undone everything. You didn't attack them, you walked into their unguarded moment. You didn't strategize, you existed. And they cannot rebuild what your presence dismantled. And now, they move differently around you. Their coven, once unified, is fractured. Some avoid you because you remind them of their own complicity. Others avoid you because they fear being seen the same way you saw their leader, unmasked, unguarded, unimportant. They treat you like a walking disruption, a quiet force that destabilizes their world with minimal effort. But you haven't changed at all. It's their perception that's collapsing. Their power relied on invisibility. You made it visible. What's happening now is psychological aftermath. And aftermath is always far more revealing than the event itself. Their leader is scrambling to fill the cracks with performance. More posturing, more rehearsed confidence, more symbolic gestures that try to reassert dominance. But his followers no longer see authority when he speaks. They see a man terrified of being witnessed again. They see someone obsessed with regaining control, not someone who inherently possesses it. And you, without lifting a finger, became the measure they compare him against. You want to know why they can't look at you anymore? It's simple. You are no longer a person to them. You are an interruption, one that revealed the hollowness they depended on. They don't fear your actions. They fear your awareness. They fear your clarity. They fear the way your presence forces them to confront the truth they buried beneath rituals and dominance games. They fear that power can collapse this easily, quietly, accidentally. But here's the real twist, the one none of them saw coming. You didn't just expose their leader. You exposed the entire system that propped him up. You exposed the psychological ritual of intimidation, disguised as authority. You exposed the symbolic choreography they used to maintain control. You exposed the fact that their power structure was never built to withstand someone who doesn't believe in their myth. You think this ends with you walking out of that room. No, that was the ignition point. The moment their internal hierarchy lost its invisibility. The moment their leader's dominance shattered in front of the only witnesses whose opinions mattered. The ones who once believed in him. What comes next isn't your doing. It's the natural collapse of a system that suddenly knows it's exposed. And now the question circulates among them like a ghost they can't outrun. If the leader could fall apart under one gaze, how much of what they followed was real? That question is poison to any hierarchy built on illusion. It spreads quietly. It corrodes loyalty. It fractures obedience. It rewrites the internal map of who they follow and why. And every time they remember your calm intrusion into their ritual room, the question deepens. The doubt widens. The collapse accelerates. Because once a structure realizes its foundation is sand, every step becomes hesitant. Every silence becomes suspicious. Every command becomes a test. And the Coven, the so-called Elias Circle that once moved with synchronized certainty, now stumbles through their own choreography like dancers who forgot the sequence. They try to maintain posture